morning, and welcome to Biology. I'm Paul Suchecki, and this is my classroom. It's great to see everybody's smiling faces again today. The topic for today is classification of living things. Human beings love to classify things. We love to put things in groups, even if they don't fit. It just seems to make our lives easier. Think about a grocery store. A grocery store is one of the most organized places there is. Everything is classified. Let's say you went to the grocery store looking for a gallon of milk. Where would you go? I don't know about you, but I'd go to the dairy section. In the dairy section, I might find more than one kind of milk. There might be whole milk, 2% milk, skim milk, chocolate milk, all kinds. What else might you find in the dairy section besides milk? How about yogurt, cheese, butter? See, at the grocery store, they put similar items together in one section. Next, I need a can of SpaghettiOs. Where do I go? I don't know about you, but I'd try the canned food aisle. Canned food aisle's got all kinds of canned food, not just SpaghettiOs. I think you get my point. If the grocery store wasn't organized like that, you could wander around days looking for a can of soup. Classifying things just makes our lives easier. The science of classifying living things is called taxonomy. For the same reason, scientists classify living things according to their shared characteristics. All the living things with leaves and chlorophyll go in one group, the plants. All the living things that have a digestive system and eat things go in another group, animals. All the animals that have gills and fins and swim through the water, let's put them in a group. We'll call them fish. Animals with feathers and lay eggs, call them birds. All the animals that have fur, give birth to live young, and feed their babies milk, go in a group. We call them mammals. I think you get the idea. Human beings just love to classify things. We like to put things in groups. Modern humans aren't the first people to classify living things. The first person that we know of that tried to classify living things was a Greek philosopher named Aristotle. He lived about 2,000 years ago. His system, although a good first try, didn't work so well. Instead of grouping things by similar characteristics, he grouped them by similar habitat. And he had 3 categories: land, sea, and air. Anything that could crawl, walk, or run, land animal. Anything that could swim, sea. Anything that could fly, air. Land, sea, and air. Easy. Well, I see a couple problems right off. Here I just listed a few animals that I would put in each category: land, sea, and air. Should we really put a horse and a centipede together in the same group? How about a whale and a jellyfish? Should they really be in the same group? Just because butterflies, bats, and birds all fly doesn't mean they're all related. Here's another problem I see. What about a duck? What group should I put a duck in? Because a duck can do all 3. A duck can fly, a duck can walk, and a duck can swim. Aristotle's system had some problems. Not only that, but his system used common names instead of scientific names. Now I know for the average person who's not a scientist, common names are easier, and scientists use all kinds of big words, but for scientists, scientific names are really more useful. So you may have seen this animal before. What's it called? I call it a crayfish, but some people call it a crawdad, and other people call it a crawfish. Just depends on where you live in the country. You see, common names change from one location to another. They're not always consistent. Here I've listed a group of fish: crayfish, starfish, cuttlefish, dogfish, catfish, jellyfish, silverfish. They're not all fish. As a matter of fact, only one in this list is really a true fish. Can you name it? Which one's the true fish? A crayfish isn't really a fish. It's a crustacean. A starfish isn't really a fish. Is a starfish really part star, part fish? What about a cuttlefish? Nah, that's like a squid. A dogfish is kind of like a fish, but it's really a shark, which isn't really a true fish. Catfish. Yeah. You think dogfish chase catfish? A jellyfish isn't a fish. What is it, part jelly, part fish? Have you ever had a peanut butter and jellyfish sandwich? And a silverfish, that's like a bug. That's like an insect. So just because the name says fish, doesn't mean it's really a fish. Common names can sometimes be misleading. Probably the biggest problem with Aristotle's system? Nobody uses it. And then along came Linnaeus. He lived in the 1700s. He was a botanist, and he developed the current system that we use to classify living things. Rather than considering only habitat, Linnaeus' system takes into account an organism's physical characteristics and classifies species into natural groups. First, Linnaeus developed a system of binomial nomenclature to name species. Each species was given a more general genus name and a more specific species name, and that name was Latinized and accepted by all scientists. This reduced the confusion caused by common names. Can you guess the names of these animals? Canis lupus, Canis latrans, Canis familiaris. They're all dogs, right? Because they all have the same genus name, Canis. You know, like canine. But they're all different dogs because they have different species names. Canis lupus is a wolf. Canis latrans is a coyote. Canis familiaris is just a regular family dog. When we put the genus name and the species name together, that's the scientific name. The genus name is always capitalized. The species name isn't. If we handwrite a scientific name, we always underline it. When it's typed, we use an italics font. Each genus is put into a family. Each family is put into an order. Each order is put into a class, and each class is put into a phylum. Each phylum is put into a kingdom, and now each kingdom is in a domain. Let's take the Canis genus, for instance. All members of the genus Canis are in the family Canidae. All canids belong to the order Carnivora, with other carnivores. The carnivores are all placed in the class Mammalia, with other mammals. Mammals belong to the phylum Chordata, with all the chordates, and all members of the phylum Chordata are in the kingdom Animalia. As you move from species to kingdom, each category gets more general and broad. As you move from kingdom to species, each category gets more specific. Over the centuries, the Linnaean system is continually updated and revised to reflect a more accurate picture of the natural world. No classification system is perfect, but the Linnaean system has truly passed the test of time. Biologists all over the world still use it. There's more than one way to classify living things. And depending on who you talk to, there could be as many as 2 or 23 different kingdoms of living things. Most scientists accept a 6-kingdom system. Let's start small with the kingdom Archae. The kingdom Archae was once part of the kingdom Monera that included all the bacteria, but recent discoveries have caused microbiologists to reconsider the classification of bacteria. Scientists think there are enough differences between Archae bacteria and Eubacteria that they really should be in separate kingdoms. Archae bacteria are just weird. They live in really weird, extreme environments, like hot pools at about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. No other living thing could survive there. Some Archae bacteria thrive in acid lakes that have a pH near 2. Archae bacteria are just weird. So, scientists removed them from the kingdom Monera and gave them their own separate kingdom, the kingdom Archae. The kingdom Eubacteria includes all of the true bacteria. Bacteria are unicellular prokaryotic organisms that live all around us. They live in the soil and do extremely important work for nature. It's true that some bacteria are bad. They cause diseases or even death. But in fact, most bacteria are beneficial. I've always said that bacteria are a lot like teenagers. Most of them are good. It's just that the bad ones make the headlines. You hardly ever hear about the good ones. Some are decomposers. Some are nitrogen fixers. Some produce antibiotics that can be used as medicine to help humans. There are even some bacteria that live inside our bodies that we couldn't live without. Us humans, we think we're in charge, but actually, bacteria run the world. A biologist that studies bacteria is called a microbiologist. Microbiology is the study of really, really small living things. The kingdom Protista includes unicellular eukaryotic organisms. Although still microscopic, protists are much bigger than bacteria and more complex. There are basically 4 groups of protists, based primarily on their means of locomotion. The amoeboids, the ciliates, the flagellates, and the sporozoans. The amoeba, like all amoeboids, just kind of ooze from place to place by what's known as amoeboid movement. The ciliates, like the paramecium, have cilia. Cilia are kind of like tiny little hairs that they wave back and forth to move through the water. The flagellates, like the euglena, have a flagellum. A flagellum is a single long whip-like tail that the euglena waves back and forth to swim through the water. Now the sporozoans have really no means of locomotion on their own. They're all parasites, and they're carried from one host to another, usually by an insect. The protist that causes the disease malaria is a sporozoan. It's carried from one host to another by mosquitoes. Fungi are multicellular, heterotrophic organisms that absorb food. Yeast are the only unicellular fungi. Mushrooms, molds, and mildews are all multicellular. Fungi were once classified as plants. Some of them are rooted in the soil and they kind of look like plants. But fungi don't have chlorophyll and they can't do photosynthesis. Fungi are heterotrophs. They must consume things. Have you ever seen mold growing on a piece of bread? What do you think that mold is doing? It's using that piece of bread for food. It's consuming it. And in the meantime, it's producing millions and millions of spores to reproduce itself. The mold hopes those spores find another piece of bread and keep the species going. The mold is consuming the bread, but it's not really eating the bread. Fungi don't have a mouth, and they don't really have a digestive system like animals. What fungi do is they secrete digestive enzymes onto their food. Their food is digested outside their bodies, and then they absorb it through their epidermis. Animals are heterotrophs too, but animals first ingest their food. That is, they swallow it, and then they digest it. Fungi digest first and then absorb. Mycology is the study of fungi. A biologist who specializes in mushrooms and mold and fungi is called a mycologist. Plants are multicellular and autotrophic. Plants have chlorophyll and they do photosynthesis. But did you know that not all plants have chlorophyll? Some plants, like dodder, lack chlorophyll and they parasitize other plants. Their roots, instead of growing into the soil, grow into the tissue of a host plant and steal away their glucose. Hey, it's all about survival, baby. There are basically two groups of plants, vascular plants and non-vascular plants. The non-vascular plants we call bryophytes. Things like moss, hornworts, and liverworts are non-vascular plants. Non-vascular plants lack vascular tissue and they just don't grow very tall. They survive best in moist, shady environments. The vascular plants we call tracheophytes. Vascular plants have vascular tissue. Vascular tissue helps transport water through the plant. They grow a lot taller. Most of the plants that you see are vascular plants. And of course, the largest plants of all, like redwood trees, are vascular plants. Vascular plants include ferns, conifers, and all the flowering plants. And flowering plants make up the largest and most diverse group of plants. Everything from trees and grass and daffodils, corn, soybeans, tomatoes. Botany is the study of plants. A biologist who specializes in just plants is called a botanist. So what about animals? What's an animal? You've seen animals before, haven't you? You know what an animal is. What's an animal? An animal is a multicellular heterotrophic organism that ingests food. All animals are multicellular. I can't think of an animal that's unicellular. All animals are heterotrophic. I can't think of an autotrophic animal. It wouldn't be in the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom is divided into two major groups, the vertebrates and the invertebrates. Vertebrate animals have a backbone. Invertebrate animals don't have a backbone. There are way more invertebrates than vertebrates. The simplest animals are sponges in the phylum Porifera. The word porifera means pore-bearing. Sponges grow attached to the ocean floor and filter little bits of food called plankton from the water. So they're filter feeders. They don't have muscles, they don't have nerves, they don't have a brain. But they are animals because they're multicellular and they ingest food. So they do fit the definition of an animal. The phylum Cnidaria includes jellyfish, sea anemones, coral, and the Portuguese man-o-war. All members of the phylum Cnidaria have the ability to sting. The medusa form, like a jellyfish, is mobile and has its tentacles hanging downward. Their stinging cells, or cnidocytes, are located on their tentacles. If a small fish rubs up against their tentacles, they'll be stung and eaten by the jellyfish. A sea anemone is upside down. A sea anemone takes the polyp form. A polyp is attached to the ocean bottom with its tentacles sticking up, but the same idea applies. If a fish rubs up against its tentacles, it'll be stung and eaten, unless you're a clownfish. And clownfish aren't really that funny. Some species of jellyfish can pack a powerful sting that can even kill a human being, so be careful out there. There are three phyla of worms. The phylum Platyhelminthes are the flatworms. The phylum Nematoda are the roundworms, and the phylum Annelida are the segmented worms. I like worms because I like to go fishing. Many species of worms are free-living, like the earthworm or the planaria. A free-living worm doesn't need a host to survive. It's not a parasite. But some worms are parasites, like pinworm or hookworm or tapeworm. Here in the U.S., parasitic worms in humans are pretty rare. In other parts of the world, parasitic worms in humans are common. If you have pets, your pets are more likely to get parasitic worms than you are. Check with your vet. Intestinal worms like tapeworms and hookworms can easily be treated, but heartworm is another matter. Heartworm is a parasitic worm that can get in your pet's heart and do serious damage. Prevention's the best medicine. The phylum Mollusca is the second largest group of animals, second only to the arthropods. Mollusks include clams and oysters, snails and slugs, octopuses and squids. Yeah, I said octopuses. Look it up. Or do you like octopi? I like pumpkin pie. Anyways, octopuses, squids, and their cousins, the cuttlefish, are considered to be the most intelligent invertebrate animals. Not bad for a mollusk. The largest group of animals by far is the phylum Arthropoda. Or do you say Arthropoda? Is it Arthropoda or Arthropoda? It doesn't matter. There are more arthropods than all other animals combined. Crustaceans like crayfish, lobsters, crabs, and shrimp are arthropods. Honestly, one of my least favorite groups of animals are the arachnids, the spiders, the scorpions, and the ticks. Insects are arthropods, and there are more insects in the world than any other kind of animal. Insects typically have 3 body parts and 6 legs. Arachnids typically have 2 body parts and 8 legs. Spiders aren't insects. Ticks aren't insects. The myriapods, like millipedes and centipedes, aren't insects either. They've got way more than 6 legs. The starfish, sea urchins, and sand dollars belong to a slow-moving, spiny-skinned group of animals called the phylum Echinodermata. The word Echinodermata means spiny skin. All vertebrate animals are classified in the phylum Chordata and the subphylum Vertebrata. Even though there are more invertebrates than vertebrates, you're probably more familiar with the vertebrates. There are basically 5 groups of vertebrates: fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Fish are aquatic, with gills and fins. Fish make up the largest group of vertebrate animals. That makes sense. 3/4 of the planet's covered in water. There are 3 classes of fish. The class Agnatha includes all the jawless fish, like lampreys and hagfish. The class Chondrichthyes are the cartilaginous fish, like sharks and rays. The class Osteichthyes is the largest group of fish, the bony fish. The fish that you go fishing for are bony fish, unless you go fishing for sharks. The class Amphibia includes frogs and toads, salamanders and newts, and apodants, the legless amphibians, sometimes called caecilians. Amphibians are partly aquatic and partly terrestrial. Amphibians lay their eggs in the water. They have to, otherwise they'll dry out. A tadpole hatches from the egg. A tadpole is basically aquatic. It's got gills and fins, like a fish. But as you probably know, the tadpole goes through a process called metamorphosis, where it loses its tail, grows limbs, loses its gills, and grows lungs, and becomes basically a terrestrial animal. So it spends part of its life aquatic and part of its life terrestrial. That's an amphibian. Since amphibians can't stray too far from water, they're not real common in dry habitats like deserts. They're much more common in shady, moist areas. Reptiles are truly terrestrial animals. Reptiles are turtles and tortoises, lizards and snakes, alligators and crocodiles, and a little animal called the tuatara. Unlike amphibians, reptiles have waterproof eggs. They can lay their egg on dry land, and the egg won't dry out. Reptiles can thrive in much drier climates than amphibians. Reptiles are cold-blooded. That means they regulate their temperature with the outside environment. If it's 50 degrees out, their body temperature is 50 degrees. If it's 90 degrees out, then their body temperature is 90 degrees. That could be good and bad. Reptiles absorb heat from the environment. They don't really generate their own heat like a warm-blooded animal. They have to bask in the sun until their body reaches its optimal temperature. Since they don't have an internal furnace, they don't have to burn extra calories to generate heat. So reptiles can get by on much less food than warm-blooded animals. Whereas warm-blooded animals have to eat several times a day, a reptile can get by on one good meal a week. I know I couldn't get by on one meal a week. The class Aves includes all the birds, our fine feathered friends. All birds have feathers, all birds have wings, but not all birds fly. Penguins and ostriches, they don't fly. Birds reproduce by laying eggs. All birds lay eggs. Birds are warm-blooded. They generate their own heat and use their feathers to insulate their bodies. The class Aves is a very diverse group. If you don't believe me, pick up a bird book and a pair of binoculars and go see how many you can spot. Birds are everywhere. And bird watching is a nice relaxing hobby, if you're into nature. Finally, the class Mammalia, our fine furry friends. All mammals have hair. All mammals are warm-blooded. Most mammals give birth to live young. There are 3 exceptions. The duck-billed platypus and 2 species of echidnas are mammals that lay eggs. Mammals take parenting to the next level. All mammals feed their babies with milk. Mammals are warm-blooded, which means we generate our own heat. A mammal's body is meant to stay at a specific temperature. Our bodies go to great lengths to maintain this temperature. Your muscles are always warm and ready to go. Now this costs you. You have to eat more to generate your own heat. Since reptiles are cold-blooded, they don't have to eat as much. The class Mammalia is a very diverse group as well. There are hoofed mammals like horses and cows and zebras. There are marine mammals like whales and dolphins and porpoises. There are rodents like mice and beavers. The marsupials are pouched mammals like kangaroos and possums. There are flying mammals like bats. There are other groups of mammals as well, equally fascinating, and there are whole branches of zoology devoted to each group of animals. Not only that, but each group of animals probably deserves its own chapter. There are way too many species and not enough time for one biologist to study all of them. And the research goes on. A biologist who specializes in just animals is called a zoologist. Zoology is the study of animals. And no, not all the cool stuff has been discovered already. There's lots of cool stuff all over the planet just waiting to be discovered. We need more biologists. It's a big world with plenty more secrets out there waiting to be revealed. Go out and explore your world. I'm sure there's some pretty cool animals and plants even in your own backyard, or down at the city park, or down at a forest preserve. Maybe you're lucky enough to live near a national park. With that, I think I'm going to stop for today. Just be careful out there and don't get lost, okay? Have a great day. See you next time.